everybody, Roxabox90 here with a video I don't think I've ever done before. I'm showing off a new card game on the channel. So this is from my sponsor, the Dragonshield makers Arcane Tinmen, and the game is called The Spoils. And as you saw in the little trailer bit I posted before, this is the pretty much, it's like Ace of Spades kind of thing, and in fact, the backs of their cards look very much like that. It's kind of Ace of Spades Spoils. Very cool. So this card game, I don't want to go over all the details of how to play because they've made a bunch of videos on that, and they have these introductory guides, and there's a lot of stuff to learn. A lot of it is interesting and it's different. But for me, I think the main thing I can give you guys, having gone over the cards and general rules and played a bit with it, is the differences and the similarities is a lot of, but the differences between it and Magic and some things that I found interesting about it. So the first thing that I noticed is that there are these cards called factions, and I'll zoom in to you guys. So here, so they have these things called factions. So this faction is called, a little bit of the lighting is the tournament faction with a certain amount of influence. That's pretty much the same thing as life points. And you have a faction that fights with other factions and tries to get the most influence. And it tells you how many cards you draw per turn, the amount of resources you can use land effectively, your untapping phase or restore phase, develop, rule, and it gives you certain abilities depending on the faction that you're in. And each faction has different things. So this faction, you start off with Obsession. And the Obsession and one staple resource. And the Obsession is a kind of resource, I believe. And this one's Elitism, another kind of resource. Land, in other words, and Rogue, and Deception, I believe, and basically each one, and Greed, and each one of these have a different number of resources, and they're different factions, and you connect to different factions, which is similar in effect to Magic in terms of the colors. It relates similarly. Each faction has their own pros, their own cons, their own differences, and then, of course, there's this artifact-like faction, I believe, is what it came across to me as. And here you see there's each different kind, and each different one has these different symbols that represent them. So these are the Gearsmith, which is similar kind of to Artifact in a way in terms of them having this symbol. A lot of the Artifact-like cards in this set are from the Gearsmith group. And then you have rogues, and you have banks, and you have all different kinds of groups. And you build with a faction, and you develop yourself and develop your deck. The deck sizes tend to be a little bigger. I think they're about 75 cards instead of 60 is the average deck. And limited is, I think, closer to Magic, it's 45. So what I found interesting, we have the factions, and that makes it a little more personalized. But of course, the risk with factions, which Magic tries to avoid, is that it sets you up, each faction has its own benefits, in a sense, that its own benefit abilities that you can use for being in that faction, which can potentially cause a little imbalance, but it also makes things a little more unique. So I like that. That's a little different. The rarities are pretty much all the same in terms of common, uncommon, rare, and then instead of mythic, there's ultra rare, which is similar. And the art is very stylized. I like it. Unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, I think it does have a sense of realism to it, even though it's also more cartoony and stylized than most of Magic. Of course, there are sets like Lorwyn that have a very stylized artistic flair to them, but most of Magic is more photorealism than not. So that's kind of interesting. They have their own style. And the one thing that so far that I found is that the cards themselves are pretty straightforward. You have characters which are like creatures. They're creature effect, except that the only major difference, if you zoom in, so here you have effectively strength, which is power, life, which is toughness, and then speed, which is who strikes first in combat. I think whoever has more speed strikes first, but it's similar in effect to having a power toughness kind of thing. The foils, I'll mention, just having played with them a bit, they seem to scratch or wear around the edges a lot more easily than Magic ones. I don't know if that's for better or worse, but it does. I mean, I pulled some of the foils out of the packs, and literally they're packed fresh, and they already had scratches around the sides, and the foil starts wearing off. So that was a little strange. I don't know if it's in the process, their current process, the foiling. has that, but the foils look rather nice. It's just that they tend to wear around the edges pretty much. So like this one is called the Structure, which is kind of like a Planeswalker enchantment in one, where the structure takes damage. If the structure runs out, then it loses, and has a scale. Many of them have a scaling effect. So that was kind of interesting. And they have their own ways and their own words and ways of doing it. So it's not a Magic duplicate. There definitely are major differences in terms of the foiling process, the faction aspect to it. They get rid of sorceries, and they make the only spell-like thing is called a tactic, which is instant speed, and it's always instant speed, and everything else, there's no other form of sorcery, which I think Magic could have eliminated instant or sorcery, but it's been so ingrained in us that we don't do that anymore. I think it could easily have been sorceries, and then sorceries with flash would be the equivalent, and you get rid of a whole archetype of interrupt instant, and you don't have to deal with that. At this point, I think it's a lot of work for Wizards to have to undo something like that, and it's pretty much impossible. But this is a new game starting off, so that's what I think they tried to do, is that they made, you have instants, but there's no sorceries. You can play instants during your turn or during your opponent's turn. And then they have other aspects to it. And those are called tactics. They're spell-like effects. And the last thing I'll mention is that there is an element of it's for 13 and up, so it's PG-13 in a sense, but there definitely are some very adult situations or adult imagery in the set, and the difficulty for me right now is that the basic cards are that it's actually on the artwork of the basic cards. This is the only one that is not provocativeness to the basic lands, which makes it difficult to really build a deck in any faction outside of this that doesn't involve that. So for younger kids, it makes it very difficult to get in on it, whereas Magic, it's pretty easy to avoid more provocative adult-like scenarios and depictions. So that's something to mention as well. I don't know if that's something that they ever plan on changing, or just this game is necessarily designed for older people. But a lot of the cards are very funny. They have really interesting twists and turns, and often the artwork depicts very funny scenarios. Like this promo, for example, is a one-legged hopping pogo bear, and that is by no means unusual in the set. So overall, I think the game is a lot of fun and definitely very interesting and different. And because I want to give some people the chance to try it out, I have here 2 tournament decks, or I think it's like 70 random cards. You get some factions, one of each faction, so you can have to play, and you also get 25 resources, so one of each of these to 2 winners, and then I'll give also a group of booster packs with each one, so you can play pretty much right out of the box with it, and I think it'll be really fun. So I'm going to give it away to one person. Really, all you have to do is like the video, favorite the video, be subscribed to the channel, and put down below the comment section if you could take a look at the Arcane Tinmen website and the spoils videos, which I'll put them in the description of the video. Just take a look and give your comments and thoughts about, have you played the game before, what you think of the game so far, look at the basic rules, maybe see if there are things that you like, things that you don't like, any sort of commentary and stuff, put it down below in the comment section, and doing those things will get you an entry. So I think it's a pretty cool game, and I don't know if it's going to grow as quickly as Magic, but the way to know about it and the way for it to expand is for people to see it. So thank you, Arcane Tinmen, for sponsoring all this goodness stuff, and I hope the winner is happy and enjoys and tries out this new game. So thanks for watching, everyone. Roxabox90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.